Hey guys, tonight, we slip back way back into a land of elephant kings, fire-walking priests, and mangoes. So juicy they make modern smoothies look like sad soup. Welcome to ancient India. You're not here to rule an empire or reach enlightenment under a Bodhi tree. No, your humble mission is simply to survive one day. Spoiler alert, you probably won't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and the time you're tuning in. I love seeing where in the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up with a jolt, drenched in sweat before the sun even clears the treetops. Welcome to a rural village circa 300 BCE. The air smells of roasted grain smoke and cow. Lots of cow. Not steak, actual cows, wandering with sacred entitlement. One ambles past you like it owns the place, and, well, it kind of does. In this time, cows are considered holy, so you better not shoo it or make eye contact for too long. That's social suicide before breakfast. You stumble out of your modest hut, wattle and daub walls, a thatched roof, and immediately regret going barefoot. The dirt path is a minefield of sharp pebbles, thorny acacia, and you guessed it, fresh cow dung. Ancient sandals, not for peasants like you. The smell of wood smoke clings to everything, and your eyes sting with dust, kicked up by early risers heading to the well. Your first challenge of the day is water. It's not coming out of a faucet, because plot twist plumbing hasn't been invented here yet, unless you're in the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro 1,000 years ago, which you're not. You grab a clay pot and hike half a kilometer to the river. By the time you get there, it's already crowded. Women fill their jars, farmers bathe their oxen, and a man upstream is brushing his teeth with a twig. You lean down, cup some water to your face, and instantly regret it. The water's lukewarm, full of silt and possibly a few parasitic friends. But hey, hydration is hydration. By mid-morning, the heat has gone from sweaty to scorch the inside of your skull. There's no shade, no sunglasses, and no SPF 50. Want sunscreen? Try a paste of turmeric, sandalwood, and crocodile dung. Yes, that was a thing. Historians still argue whether this was truly for skincare or just an elite ritual flex. Either way, your face now smells unique. Food. You're craving anything, maybe rice, some dal, even stale chapati. But in your role as a low-caste traveler, or maybe just a guest with no standing, you get the leftovers. A porridge made from barley or millet spiced lightly if you're lucky. You burn your tongue, then smile anyway. It would be rude not to. Walking through the village, you spot structures made of mud brick and hear chants drifting from a distant temple. It's not all drudgery. The colors are beautiful. Women wear saris dyed with indigo and madder root. Children chase goats, and merchants arrange baskets of fruit in perfect pyramids. Everything smells alive, earthy, real. You're part of a breathing civilization now. Then you try to speak. Your modern tongue fumbles over Sanskrit, Prakrit, or maybe Tamil, depending on the region. A boy laughs. A woman stares. You've just accidentally said, "I eat my grandmother," instead of "I eat rice." Great start. Let's not forget the wildlife. A monkey steals your food while you're blinking. A cobra slithers behind a clay wall. Peacocks scream like tiny demons. You suddenly miss pigeons and chihuahuas. Still, despite the chaos, something tugs at you. Maybe it's the temple bells ringing in the afternoon heat, or the intricate kolam designs traced in rice flour on doorsteps, or the communal spirit of people who've lived this way for centuries. But as a breeze finally lifts the dust off your face, you realize one thing: you're utterly unequipped to last more than 12 hours here. And it's only noon. You've made it through morning, and frankly, that's impressive. But now, it's time for the part of the day where your body's spoiled by running water, and private bathrooms starts staging a protest. Let's start with the obvious. You need to relieve yourself. Don't panic, but there is no bathroom, no ceramic throne, no stall lock or roll of toilet paper. What you do have is a quiet stretch of field past the village where others have already handled their business. You walk gingerly, trying not to look down. A few villagers pass you with clay pots of water and glance at your confused expression. One offers a half smile. Left hand, they say, and keep walking. That's when you remember a crucial survival rule in ancient India: never eat with the hand you clean with. You crouch uncomfortably, aware of bugs, smells, and the faint chance of snakes. Hygiene. Well, sort of. You're expected to wash with water from your own container. Soap isn't a thing here yet, and while ash or mud might be used in some areas, you're mostly on your own. Your dignity takes a hit. So does your lower back. Back in the village, you rinse your hands in a communal basin. You think it's clean water, but honestly, the local bacteria are already throwing a welcome party in your intestines. You try to play it cool, but your stomach gurgles ominously. Hygiene, you quickly learn, is less about being germ-free and more about ritual purity. You see people bathing in rivers before temple visits, scrubbing skin raw, even washing feet before stepping indoors. But this isn't modern sanitation. It's spiritual cleansing. Historians still argue whether these practices originated for health or holiness. Either way, they're non-negotiable. As the sun climbs higher, you're invited, if you're lucky, to join a household meal. The family sits cross-legged on the floor, eating from banana leaves. There's no cutlery. You use your right hand to scoop rice and lentils into your mouth. It's delicious, but messy, and you quickly realize everyone else eats with an elegant flick of the fingers, while you look like a toddler with mashed potatoes. A dog barks outside. Someone rings a bell. A Brahmin priest is making his rounds accepting small offerings, ghee fruit incense. You lean too close, ask a casual question, and just like that, commit a faux pas so severe that a woman gasps. You've touched the priest's robe with your shadow. That's right, your shadow. In this layered society, purity isn't just physical, it's spatial. There are rules about who can touch what and when, and how far away you should stand. You try to apologize, but your language is clumsy. Someone mutters something about karma. You bow awkwardly, overcorrect, and bump into a ceremonial pot. It spills. The priest stares at you like you've just cursed his ancestors. To make matters worse, you remember that you're not just unfamiliar, you're out of caste. Or maybe without caste. If you're from a marginalized community, or worse, if the locals think you're an untouchable, you're now radioactive by social standards. Historians still debate how rigid the caste system truly was in daily life. But let's just say, you're not getting any festival invites soon. As punishment, or perhaps just because someone thinks it'll be funny, you're handed a broom and asked to sweep the temple steps. It's hot. You're thirsty. Your head throbs. But the broom is symbolic. In some areas, those considered lowest in caste were made to clean their path as they walked. You do your best, trying not to inhale too much dust or let your pride boil over. A few hours later, after much groveling, you're offered a drink, lassie cool and sweet. You sigh in relief until you realize it was prepared hours ago and left out in the sun. Your stomach rolls the dice. The dice are heavily weighted. Despite everything, there's beauty here. You see it in the way women paint their eyelids with coal made from ghee and lamp soot in the Rangoli patterns, dancing outside doorways in the chant of that rises from distant hills as monks call in the twilight. But you're also starting to feel the cost of your ignorance. This isn't just a different time. It's a world built on layers of rules, rituals, and silent expectations, and you've broken nearly all of them before dinner. And now, as the sun begins to dip behind mango trees and your gut starts staging a full-blown revolt, you begin to ask the unthinkable. How on earth are you going to survive? Until morning evening creeps in like a thick shawl, the kind worn by old women who watch silently from porches as the world winds down. You, however, are not winding down. You are panicking. Why? Because after a full day of sunburn, social faux pas, and bacterial roulette, you've just committed your biggest mistake yet. You sat on the wrong mat. It was a communal gathering, something between a religious chant and a dinner circle. And you thought, oh, I'll just sit here. What you didn't know is that mats like utensils, clothes, and even drinking vessels are tied to caste and status. You may have just plopped down on a mat meant for a Brahmin elder with your unwashed feet pointing the wrong direction. To be fair, the rules aren't written down anywhere. They're lived, breathed, and deeply internalized. A gasp, a mutter. Someone dramatically steps back. You're politely but firmly asked to stand outside, not leave, just exist beyond the boundary of where ritual purity can reach. You shuffle off, sweating in places you didn't know could sweat. Even the goats seem to judge you. This is where the social structure of ancient India reveals its teeth. The caste system isn't a side note. It's the spine of the society you're fumbling through. There are 4 main Varnas, Brahmins, priests, Kshatriyas, warriors, Vaishyas, traders, and Shudras, laborers. But underneath this sits a complex lattice of subcastes and jatis, each with its own rules. Where you're born determines what jobs you do, whom you can marry, what you eat, and lucky you, where you can sit. Historians still argue whether this system was always this rigid or if it evolved over time into something more oppressive. But from your current position, literally outside the circle, it feels plenty rigid. You try to redeem yourself by helping gather firewood. Surely, this is a universal good nope. A young man shouts at you for entering a grove sacred to his family's guardian deity. Now, you've got spiritual trespassing on your rap sheet too. In trying to help, you've desecrated a space used for ancestral offerings. Oops. Back in the village, you hear a conch shell sound in the distance. Someone's performing evening puja. Oil lamps flicker to life on small household shrines. You spot one family offering flowers, rice, and incense to a statue of Vishnu. Another worships Shiva. A third prays to Lakshmi for good harvests. You get the sense that every corner of this world is charged with meaning, with divinity, with invisible strings tying action to consequence. That's beautiful. Also terrifying. You overhear a man complaining that his neighbor's shadow crossed the temple threshold before purification, again with the shadows. Apparently, even those can carry impurity if they belong to the wrong person. And since you're now officially that person, your best bet is to stay respectfully distant from pretty much everything. Trying to make yourself useful. You're told to carry water for a ritual. Simple enough. You balance the clay pot on your hip like you've seen others do, except you stumble on a tree root and spill the entire pot. The priest sighs like you just canceled the monsoon. You're sent back to your corner, no tasks, no talking. Night falls. Fires are lit. People gather under neem trees to share stories and news. You're not invited to sit, but you watch from a polite distance. A storyteller begins weaving a tale about kings and demons, gods who walk the earth and battles that span dimensions. It's riveting. You forget your discomfort for a moment. Then someone offers the storyteller a bowl of curd rice as a thank you. He passes the empty bowl to you. You instinctively eat from it. Silence falls like a thunderclap. That was his personal eating bowl. You weren't supposed to touch it. You weren't even supposed to breathe near it. A woman hisses under her breath a hoot. Untouchable. You set the bowl down like it's radioactive apologize, and back away, bumping into a sacred cow in the process. The cow moos, you jump. The village laughs, you cry a little inside. So, to recap, you've broken ritual purity, offended priests, defiled sacred space, desecrated a shadow, and now you're the guy who touched someone's curd bowl. You're starting to wonder if sleep will even be allowed. Turns out, yes, but not where you hoped. A sympathetic elder finally takes pity and leads you to a haymat outside the main gate. It's cooler out here anyway, he says with a wink. You lie down the stars overhead, the smell of wood smoke in your nostrils. A mosquito buzzes. Something slithers in the grass. You close your eyes and mutter a little prayer. Any prayer to any deity who'll listen. So far, you've survived. But at what cost? Sleep was supposed to be your reset button. Instead, it's a scratchy haymat, a buzzing cloud of mosquitoes, and a symphony of dogs, frogs, and a rooster that doesn't understand time zones. You wake up sore itchy and with a newfound respect for mattresses, bug spray, and windows. Your stomach is still grumbling from yesterday's tragic lassie decision, but you're determined to push on. After all, how bad could the next part be? Enter ancient Indian medicine. You're greeted this morning by an elder with kind eyes, smelling faintly of ghee and camphor. You made the mistake of coughing just once, and now you're being led to the village Vaidya, or traditional healer. You were hoping for tea. What you get is a full-blown Ayurvedic diagnosis. The healer studies your tongue, then your pulse, then your eyes. He hums knowingly. Vata imbalance, he says, shaking his head with theatrical disappointment. Too much wind in the body. Also, your aura is dull. He prescribes a concoction of boiled neem leaves, clarified butter, crushed black pepper, and something suspiciously sticky. It tastes like regret. Ayurveda, you learn, is a centuries-old system of medicine, grounded in the balance of three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. The idea is to bring harmony between body, mind, and spirit. It's fascinating, really. Historians still argue how much of early Ayurveda was truly empirical versus symbolic, but one thing is certain, it is serious business. And in some cases it includes bloodletting. Which brings us to the leeches. Apparently, you have impure blood. A young apprentice cheerfully presents a small clay bowl with several wriggling leeches inside. You flinch. He grins. Don't worry. They only take a little. You're not worried about the amount. They could take a quart if it meant skipping the neem brew, but about the concept. You lie back a sweaty mess as the creatures latch on. It tickles, then stings. Then you sort of disassociate from your own arm. Later, with tiny bleeding holes and a renewed distrust of wriggly things, you hobble back toward the village square. You pass a man sitting cross-legged rubbing oil into his scalp while reciting verses from memory. He's a pandit, a scholar priest. You're drawn to the rhythmic chant. He opens one eye and gestures for you to sit. Then he tests you with a question. You nod confidently until you realize he's speaking pure Sanskrit. Not Duolingo Sanskrit. Real, ancient mouthful of consonants Sanskrit. He asks if you've memorized the Rig Veda, all 10 books of it. You barely remember your Netflix password. The pandit sighs. Education is discipline, he says, handing you a palm leaf manuscript. The script looks like someone sneezed in ink. The letters dance elegant and strange. In ancient India, education, especially for boys of higher caste, was rigorous. You weren't considered learned until you'd memorized hundreds, if not thousands, of verses. Students would study under a guru in a gurukul, living a simple life, rising before dawn, meditating and chanting, aloud until they could recite sacred texts without pause or breath. And if you messed up, you got whacked with a stick, gently. Usually, modern historians still debate whether this oral tradition enhanced memory or just led to widespread fear of sticks. Either way, your brain trained in emojis and autocorrect is no match. You try to recite the first line. You mispronounce it in a way that may or may not invoke a demon. A nearby student giggles. The pandit raises an eyebrow so sharp it could slice papaya. Perhaps manual labor is more your path. You're dismissed. Back in the square, a merchant sets up a stall of spices and silks. The colors are blinding: turmeric, yellow, indigo, blue, vermilion, red. You stare in awe. The merchant leans in. For you, special price, he whispers. Only half a goat. You don't have half a goat. You don't even have a full potato. Barter is the name of the game here. Coins exist: silver, karshapanas, or copper punch-marked coins, but most trade still relies on goods for goods. You try to offer a shoelace. The merchant blinks. Is this rope for ants? It's now mid-morning. Your arm itches from the leeches. Your insides are still battling neem. You've insulted a teacher, failed to buy anything, and might have summoned a demon. Just another Thursday in ancient India. And as you sit beneath the shade of a banyan tree watching a child practice writing with a stick in the dust, you can't help but marvel at the complexity of this world. The structure, the knowledge, the rituals, the pain, the peace. But your stomach gurgles again, and you realize with no small amount of dread you're probably due for round 2 with the Vaidya. You've learned your lesson: never cough in ancient India, unless you're ready to donate blood to a bowl of leeches. You now walk carefully, breathe softly, and avoid making eye contact with anyone carrying herbs. But then, something miraculous happens. You're invited to attend a learning session not in the dusty square, but in the private compound of a wealthier patron, someone who seems to like your bewildered expressions and obvious lack of survival skills. You'll enjoy this, he says. The epics are being recited. You arrive to find a half the circle of listeners sitting in silence as a kathakar or storyteller begins chanting from the Mahabharata. His voice is rich, melodic, hypnotic. You don't understand every word, but the rhythm carries you gods, walking the earth, brothers at war, fate, dancing on the edge of a dice game. The crowd is rapt. In ancient India, storytelling was not just entertainment. It was education, religion, and national memory all braided into one. The epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, are thousands of verses long and were performed from memory often over several days. Entire communities would gather to listen. Historians still argue whether these texts were fixed early or evolved with each retelling. But to hear them now live is a spiritual thunderclap. The Kathakar pauses and asks if anyone wishes to respond. Everyone looks away. So do you, but he singles you out. Perhaps our guest from a faraway land has thoughts on Dharma. You freeze. Dharma duty, righteousness, cosmic order. It's the central theme of the Mahabharata. You clear your throat and mutter something about doing your best not to spill curd on sacred cows. A boy snorts. The storyteller just laughs and pats your shoulder. Even that is part of Dharma, he says, learning to stumble well. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. Afterward, you're shown a small writing nook where two scribes copy verses onto Talapatra dried palm leaves using sharpened metal styluses. You watch them etch each line slowly, methodically, with the precision of someone diffusing a bomb. Ink is rubbed in after staining the grooves to make letters pop. You ask if you can try. You're handed a test leaf. You grip the stylus like a pencil and immediately snap the tip. The scribe sighs and gives you a look. Not angry, just disappointed. Writing in ancient India was a sacred craft. Literacy was rare, usually reserved for Brahmins and trained scribes. And it wasn't just about forming letters, it was about preserving divinity. The Vedas were believed to have been heard not written, which is why oral recitation remained dominant, even after writing developed. But administrative records, trade documents, land grants all etched on palm birch bark or even copper plates. You try again. This time, you manage two crooked lines. The first says something like cow. The second, according to the scribe, could be interpreted as pants. He nods thoughtfully. A useful phrase. Midday heat creeps in again. The courtyard bakes. A girl brings around pond battle leaves stuffed with areca nut and spices. You chew politely. Your mouth catches fire. Your tongue turns red. You're smiling and crying at the same time. Everyone applauds. Now he is one of us, someone jokes. But the moment doesn't last. You're asked to assist with a local dispute. Apparently, a neighbor's goat trespassed into a barley field, and now the field's owner wants compensation. A village elder, acting as arbitrator, hears both sides. You sit beside him, expected to observe justice in action. You nod wisely, trying not to look like you have absolutely no idea what's going on. Turns out, this is Panchayat Justice, a local council of elders resolving disputes without kings or police. Ancient India had many such systems where the community governed itself. It's democratic in a chaotic kind of way. Still, you're impressed by how calm everyone remains, even when the goat wanders back into the scene mid-argument. The elder, finally, rules the goat's owner owes a basket of grain, and the field owner must forgive the first offense. Everyone seems satisfied, except the goat. It poops on your foot. Again. As the sun dips low, you take a moment under a tree to gather your thoughts. You've heard an epic, ruined a writing utensil, almost impressed a storyteller, and gotten caught up in agricultural litigation. Your head spins from the blend of cosmic drama and earthy practicality. And as you watch a boy trace AUM in the dirt with his toe, you realize in this world even the dust is sacred. But don't get too cozy. Tomorrow, you're being sent to the city. And cities are a whole different survival game. Morning mist clings low as you shuffle toward an ox-drawn cart. you're heading to the big city, Pataliputra, capital of the Mauryan Empire. You thought surviving a village was tough. Buckle up, friend. Cities in ancient India are buzzing labyrinths of ambition, hierarchy, and intrigue. Basically, New York without coffee or elevators. The journey is slow. The cart jolts with every bump, and your seat is a burlap sack of lentils. At one point, an elephant blocks the path, lazily chewing sugar cane. You wait. The elephant does not care. You try making polite conversation with the driver. He grunts. That's the entirety of the exchange. After half a day of dust, heat, and mosquito bites in new places, the city emerges on the horizon. High walls, wooden gates, the dull glint of metal-tipped spears. You feel it instantly. This isn't your sleepy cow town anymore. Pataliputra is vast, loud, and alarmingly organized. Stone-paved streets, water channels, people in crisp cotton robes moving with purpose. Somewhere a trumpet blares. You flinch. No one else does. You stumble into the outer market, eyes wide. Spices, dyes, fruit, and jewelry spill from stalls like treasure. A woman haggles over saffron. A man sharpens a knife the size of your forearm. You nearly trip over a crate of pomegranates. A child steals one and vanishes before anyone can blink. No one seems surprised. And then there are the guards. Tall, serious, wearing wrapped cloth armor and carrying long spears. This is the Mauryan Empire, after all, the largest empire in Indian history up to that point. Ruled by Chandragupta Maurya, and later his grandson Ashoka, it's a machine of order, conquest, and bureaucracy. You're told there's a minister of roads, forests, even spies. Historians still argue how centralized this rule truly was, but records suggest an impressive level of administration for the era. You accidentally brush past a man in fine silk. He glares. You mutter sorry in a dozen accents and slink away. Eventually, you're invited into a small court, nothing like a modern courtroom. It's an open pavilion with cushions, oil lamps, and incense burning thick as fog. Here, disputes are settled, policies read aloud, and alliances whispered. You sit in the back, watching nobles, scribes, and envoys move like chess pieces. And in the middle, a sleek, gold-robed advisor who doesn't raise his voice but commands the room. You're here to observe, but curiosity gets the better of you. You step closer, nodding, as if you understand the conversation. Someone offers you fermented sugarcane wine. You sip. Your tongue recoils. You keep sipping. It's strong enough to strip paint. Then the mood shifts. Someone in the court accuses a trader of tax evasion. The accused protests. A scroll is unrolled. Your limited understanding of Sanskrit makes it sound like he's being fined the equivalent of 5 goats and a silk sash. You try not to laugh. That is, until someone mistakes you for his interpreter. Now you're being asked for clarification. You freeze. You think fast. You string together a sentence of half-remembered verbs, one deity's name, and the word for mango. It makes no sense. The room falls silent. Then a chuckle. The gold-robed advisor waves his hand. Let him be. He's clearly not from here. You exhale so hard your knees wobble. To avoid being booted entirely, you volunteer to help one of the scribes. You're handed a stylus and a birch bark sheet. This time, you write slowly, carefully, copying the digits from tax rolls. 110, 100, 1000. Yes, the ancient Indians had a number system, and even used zero long before most of the world caught on. Though here it's still more placeholder than hero of the math world. The scribe gives a rare nod. Not bad for an outsider. You beam. As evening falls, the city transforms. Musicians play sitars and drums near street corners. Lamps flicker to life. A dancer performs in the courtyard of a wealthy merchant anklets, chiming hands fluttering like birds. You stand at the edge of the circle, transfixed. Then someone offers you a plate of sweets, ladu jalebi, something sticky and mysterious. You eat it all. You shouldn't have. Your stomach, already suffering from its herbal ordeal, is now doing acrobatics. You run to the nearest alley, narrowly avoiding disaster. A cat watches, judgmental. You thank the gods loudly and in all languages for surviving yet another day. Still, you can't deny the allure of the city, the energy, the beauty, the brains. It's a world of silk and steel knowledge and cunning. One misstep and you're done. But if you learn the rhythms, you might just dance along. For now, though, you curl up under a wooden awning, swatting flies and whispering, "Please, just let me wake up in the village again." Too late. Tomorrow, you're attending a spiritual retreat. And, spoiler, it involves fasting. You wake up to the sound of temple bells and a rooster that's at least 3 hours late. The scent of incense clings to the humid air like a second skin. Someone nudges you gently, a monk in simple saffron robes, shaved head gleaming in the morning light. "Come," he says softly, "you're joining us for sadhana." Sadhana? A spiritual discipline. You nod like you've heard the word before. You haven't. But when a serene monk invites you to a mountaintop hermitage, you don't say no. You follow, barefoot, hungry, and completely unprepared. The walk is long. The terrain shifts from crowded city alleys to dusty footpaths, winding into the forest. As you climb, the noise of the world below fades. No carts, no merchants, just bird's wind and the occasional monkey, chattering as it hurls fruit at your head. Your legs ache. Your sandals, barely holding together, snap halfway up the trail. You consider asking the monk for a break, but he's already 10 steps ahead, gliding like he's on a moving walkway. Eventually, the trees open up to reveal a small stone ashram perched on a ledge. A breathtaking view of the valley below sprawls out beneath you, patches of green rice fields, winding rivers, distant temple spires. It's stunning. It's peaceful. It's terrifying. Because now you're told that before you do anything else, before rest, before water, you fast. Fasting brings clarity, the monk says with a calm smile. Also, no talking until sundown. Perfect. So you sit, cross-legged, staring at a single rock in front of you while your stomach rumbles loud enough to summon wildlife. You try meditating. You fail. You think about cheeseburgers. You think about the time you dropped a spoon in a temple and caused minor spiritual scandal. You think about going home. Instead, you watch. The monks move through their day with a quiet grace, cleaning, chanting, gathering firewood, sweeping leaves. They eat one meal midday in complete silence, a bowl of boiled rice and lentils. You're not allowed to partake yet, so you sit at the edge of the stone platform, chewing the inside of your cheek. One monk brings you water, cool from a spring, and nods solemnly. You thank him silently. He replies with a slow blink. As the sun rises higher, the chanting begins, low, rhythmic humming through the bones of the ashram like the purr of an ancient engine. The Gayatri mantra echoes off the stone, a hymn to the sunlight and higher wisdom. Even if you don't understand the Sanskrit, something about the repetition soothes you. You close your eyes. You breathe. And for a brief moment, you actually feel calm. Then your stomach growls again. Loud. A bird flies off. The monk beside you raises one eyebrow. Welcome to the sacred struggle. Spiritual practice in ancient India wasn't a hobby. It was the beating heart of life for many. Whether it was the Vedic rituals of Brahmins, the meditations of Buddhists, or the ascetic trials of Jain monks, the idea was always the same: transcend the body to understand the soul, or at least get through the day without passing out. Historians still argue whether these practices were widely adopted or reserved for elite practitioners, but you're currently living proof of just how hard it is to follow even the basics. You're eventually allowed to join a walking meditation. You file behind the others, barefoot, circling the perimeter of the ashram slowly, step by deliberate step. The ground is hot. Your foot hits a pebble. You yelp. Everyone ignores you. A monk pauses to smile. Pain reminds us we are still here, he whispers. You're not sure if that's deep or a subtle insult. By late afternoon, you're dizzy. A monk catches you as you sway. Almost time, he says, and gestures toward the western horizon. You sit again. The world blurs at the edges. The sun sinks like a golden coin into the hills. And then at last, the fast is broken. A single clay bowl. A small portion of kheer-sweetened rice pudding. You eat slowly, reverently tasting every grain. It's the best thing you've had in days. Your hands tremble not from hunger now, but something else. Gratitude, maybe. Or relief. Or both. After the meal, you help light the evening lamps. Butter wicks flicker in the fading light. A bell rings. Someone sings a soft hymn to Saraswati, goddess of wisdom. The melody drifts on the night wind like a lullaby for the stars. You lie down on a woven mat under an open pavilion. No walls, just the sound of the forest, the warm breath of the earth, and a strange sense of peace rising inside you, like a tide. You're sore, sunburned, and still technically fasting, since the meal wouldn't satisfy a squirrel, but you've made it through. And just as sleep begins to tug at your thoughts, you hear the monk whisper beside you. Tomorrow, we begin silence at sunrise. You smile weakly. Of course you do. You awaken to the soft chime of a bell and the cool kiss of morning air brushing your cheeks. The world feels hushed, reverent. Around you, monks begin their day without a single word. It's not just polite quiet, it's vow of silence quiet. The kind that presses gently against your skull, amplifying every rustle, breath, and stomach gurgle into a full-blown symphony. You remember the monk's final words from last night. We begin silence at sunrise, which means, from this moment forward, your words are on lockdown. At first, it's freeing. No one expects conversation. You can simply exist. You nod instead of speak, smile instead of apologize. For about 15 minutes, it's peaceful. Then your thoughts get loud. Did I leave the spoon by the fire? Is that a rash on my arm? What if they never let me talk again? You try to meditate, but your brain hijacks the stillness and turns it into an anxiety karaoke. You're not alone in this, though. One of the monks catches your eye, offers a tiny smirk. It's comforting. You mimic his breathing slow deep through the nose. The forest hums softly around you. Birds call out. Leaves shift overhead like nature's own wind chime. As the morning unfolds, the monks begin preparing for a small festival. Today is dedicated to Surya, the sun god. You help gather marigold petals and smear sandalwood paste onto polished stones, representing solar deities. A mandala of colored rice is drawn on the ground. You find yourself absorbed in the precision of it all. No words, just shared movement, rhythm, care. And then comes the fire. A small altar is constructed with mango wood. Ghee is poured into the flames as mantras are chanted softly, reverently. The heat crackles. The smoke curls upward like a whisper to the sky. You sit, cross-legged hands in your lap, watching the ceremony unfold. You don't understand every gesture, but you feel the weight of centuries behind each one. Fire is sacred here, not just for cooking or warmth, but as a bridge between human and divine. In Yajna Vedic fire rituals, it's believed the offerings you place in the flames are delivered directly to the gods. Historians still debate how these rituals evolved, whether they were originally tribal shamanic or purely Vedic, but the symbolism has endured through millennia. After the ceremony, you help clean up quietly, of course, and are then invited to sit for another round of sadhana. This time something clicks. Maybe it's the silence. Maybe it's the fire. Maybe it's your finally surrendered ego, but your thoughts slow. You feel a stillness inside like a stone settling at the bottom of a river. Then someone sneezes loudly, and the moment shatters like a dropped pot. You bite back a laugh. A few monks crack smiles. Even in sacred silence, some things are universal. The rest of the day flows gently. You carry water, sweep the paths, share a simple lunch of boiled barley. A monkey steals someone's cloth wrap and scampers up a tree. A novice monk gives chase waving a stick. The monkey wins. Late afternoon brings a rare moment of written communication. A senior monk passes you a birch bark scroll and ink. On it, he writes, "Why are you here?" You hesitate. You're not even sure anymore. Survival, curiosity, karma. You write to understand. He nods, then writes understanding comes after stillness. Stillness comes after surrender. You don't fully grasp it, but something about the phrase nestles deep into your ribs. As the sun sets, the vow of silence is lifted. One by one, the monks begin speaking again, their voices low and careful. You whisper your first words in over 12 hours. Thank you. It comes out raw, like something sacred. That night, a storyteller arrives, an ascetic, with a wild beard and a voice like thunder in slow motion. He speaks of Bharata, the ancient emperor who renounced his throne to seek truth. Of Aruni, the disciple who lay across a breach in the irrigation channel to stop a flood embodying the word sacrifice. Of a civilization that measures greatness not by conquest, but by inner stillness. You listen captivated. These aren't fairy tales. They're codes, maps for living. And for the first time since arriving here, you don't feel like a tourist. You feel initiated. That night, sleep comes easily. The breeze carries faint chants. The stars blink in slow, thoughtful patterns. You dream of rivers, fire, and a mountain that breathes. And as the ashram slumbers around you, you whisper one last thought into the dark. Maybe you could last here if not forever. Then a little longer than you thought. Morning arrives like a soft drumbeat. Distant conch shells clinking utensils bare feet on packed earth. You stretch ache in all the usual places and shuffle toward the ashram kitchen, hoping, please, just one more bowl of sweet rice. No such luck. It's boiled greens and barley again. You nod politely and chew like it's fine cuisine. But today, your journey takes a dramatic turn. A wandering monk of Parivrajaka arrives just after sunrise. He carries nothing but a staff, a cloth satchel, and the kind of calm that unnerves people. His eyes are sharp, his smile crooked. You look lost, he tells you. Fair point. He's heading east into the jungle. Want to come? Your body says no, but your curiosity overrides. You thank the ashram, gather your meager possessions, a sandal, a cracked clay bowl, a vaguely spiritual rash, and follow the monk into the trees. The jungle is alive, not the tweeting birds and gentle breeze kind of alive. More like vines that want to trip you insects, that see your sweat as buffet, and monkeys with no moral compass alive. You flinch at every sound. The monk doesn't even blink. Soon you pass under a massive banyan tree, where a hermit sits naked, smeared in ash, one leg raised vertically like he's trying to catch satellite signals with his toes. He hasn't spoken in 20 years. You wave. He doesn't. He's performing tapasya, the monk says. Austerity. Seeking liberation through discipline. You nod, biting back a comment about the alarming number of fire ants nearby. Tapasya is a core idea in many Indian spiritual traditions, Jainism, Buddhism, and Hinduism alike. It's about burning away ignorance through extreme effort. Historians still argue whether early practitioners were respected saints or fringe eccentrics. Either way, they were committed, like leg cramps for enlightenment committed. You trek deeper into the jungle, where the heat thickens and time slows. Your new guide explains that many sages sought isolation to escape the distractions of society. The forest in ancient India wasn't a place of danger. It was a classroom, a sanctuary, a crucible for spiritual transformation. Unless, of course, you're you. At one point, a wild boar snorts in the underbrush. You freeze. The monk keeps walking. You follow, muttering something about ghosts and bacon. He just chuckles. Eventually, you reach a clearing where several forest monks sit in meditation. No temples, no chanting, just silence and breath. You sit unsure of what to do. So you try to mimic them back, straight hands, folded mind blank. It lasts 4 minutes. Your foot cramps. A fly lands on your nose. Your thoughts spiral from profound emptiness to what if snakes crawl into my robe in under 10 seconds. You whisper to the monk, "How long do they sit like this?" "Until they disappear," he replies. "Disappear?" He smiles. "The ego, the illusion. You don't destroy it. You forget it. Right. You try again. This time, something shifts. The jungle hums. You hear everything at once, the windbirds, insects, even your own breath like a river pulling through your ribs. It lasts a heartbeat. But in that moment, the world makes sense. Then, a bee stings your neck, and you flail like a man possessed. The monks don't move. Stillness, the wandering monk reminds you, even in pain. You groan, swat the bee, and bow to the forest monks before limping back toward the main trail. Your humility level has increased dramatically. On the return journey, the monk shares tales of kings who gave up power for truth, of sages who debated reality under fig trees of forests that remember footsteps. One story sticks with you, a prince who left everything to find peace, sat under a Bodhi tree, and emerged as the Buddha. You stop. This forest, the monk shrugs. Could be. Or maybe it's every forest. The story lives where it's needed. You walk in silence after that, absorbing the weight of what's been said. As dusk falls, you exit the jungle. The ashram is far behind the village, even farther. The monk offers you a leaf-wrapped bundle flatbread and boiled roots. You eat it gratefully. Then he turns to leave. "Wait," you call out. "Where are you going next?" "Nowhere in particular," he says. "That's the point." And just like that, he vanishes into the dusk. You sit on a rock, dust-covered and bug-bitten, and look up at the rising moon. Something inside you has shifted, not drastically, but noticeably. You don't quite know what you've learned, but you know you've learned. And sometimes, in ancient India, that's enough. You wake up before dawn, stretched out on a smooth rock beneath a tamarind tree. Your back aches. Your legs feel like they've signed a peace treaty with gravity and lost. But you're alive. And you're not alone because you're surrounded by soldiers. Well, not exactly soldiers. More like recruits. Young men with shaved heads, bamboo training staffs, and the very serious look of people who might turn you into a wrestling dummy if you blink wrong. You've wandered near a gurukul that trains kshatriyas, the warrior class. Before you can sneak away, a voice barks, "You there come." You obey. Turns out today is battle drill day. And lucky you, you've been mistaken for someone volunteering to learn ancient Indian warfare. Congratulations. They hand you a wooden spear. You almost drop it. The instructor frowns. You'll start with elephants. You laugh. He doesn't. Moments later, you're standing beside a hulking armored elephant with tusks wrapped in bronze. It snorts. You whimper. The trainer pats its side. This is Kavala. She doesn't like fear. Excellent. Elephants in ancient Indian warfare weren't just symbols of royal prestige. They were battering rams, moving walls, morale weapons. Ancient texts describe full elephant divisions in armies, complete with armor howdahs and weapons strapped to tusks. They could trample, scatter infantry, and send horses into full meltdown mode. Historians still argue whether they were truly effective in every terrain, but nobody argues that they were intimidating. You are told to climb. There is no ladder. You fail. Eventually, with a lot of pushing, grunting, and a minor tear to your dignity, you mount the beast. The world looks very different from 8 feet up, and vastly more terrifying when the trainer yells, "Move!" and the elephant begins a slow, thundering march. You cling to its neck like a toddler on a roller coaster, whispering prayers in every language you've ever heard. Thankfully, the ride is short. Next up, sword forms. Wooden swords are handed out and you're expected to follow along, as an instructor demonstrates fluid rhythmic slashes and blocks. You manage to replicate about 30% of the moves before smacking yourself in the thigh. Twice. Kshatriya training wasn't a hobby, it was a lifelong path. From early childhood warrior caste boys were trained in archery, wrestling, swordplay, and military strategy. Their texts included the Dhanurveda, the science of warfare, as well as moral codes from the Mahabharata. War wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. You had to fight with honor, die with purpose, or, in your case, trip over a training dummy and nearly concuss yourself with your own stick. During a break, you sit near the cook fire. Someone offers you a flatbread wrapped in leaves. You reach with your left hand. Big mistake. An older trainee swats it away, muttering something about inauspicious hands. You apologize, again. The midday meal is hearty lentils, rice, buttermilk. You're allowed to eat in silence, surrounded by warriors in training who could probably bench press a water buffalo. You ask one what happens if a soldier refuses to fight. He shrugs. They become priests. Fair enough. The rest of the day is a blur of exhaustion. Archery drills, footwork practice, endurance runs. You join a group sprint and make it 12 steps before wheezing like a malfunctioning bellows. Later, as dusk settles over the training field, the instructor calls the class to order. A verse is chanted from the Bhagavad Gita Krishna, reminding Arjuna that duty comes above all else. The line echoes in your head, better to die in one's own dharma than live another's. You're not sure what your dharma is, but you suspect it's not swinging a stick in the dust. Still, as firelight flickers, and the young warriors sit in neat rows eating dinner, you feel something like pride. You've survived another arena of ancient Indian life. You may not have mastered the sword or the elephant saddle, but you showed up. You bled a little. You learned. And tonight, you sleep in a thatched barrack beside 20 snoring teenagers who can probably break your arm in 3 ways. You close your eyes, clutching your bruised ribs, and think, just one more day. That's all I need to prove I can last. Then someone farts in their sleep loudly, and you think, okay, maybe not. You wake up to the unmistakable sound of a conch shell being blown long low, and somehow both majestic and terrifying. It's still dark. You groan. Someone kicks your foot. Time to rise. Today, you're headed to a temple. A big one. You've been invited, well conscripted, by a local merchant to accompany him as he offers tribute to Vishnu. He heard you helped clean the training ground and assumes you're spiritually inclined. Close enough. The walk is long, but the temple is worth it. Towering stone spires pierce the dawn mist, covered in intricate carvings of gods, demons, celestial dancers, and animals mid-myth. Even in silhouette, it's breathtaking. As the sun climbs, the carvings glow gold, and you realize this place is more than a building. It's a cosmic diagram. A mountain of stone meant to connect earth and heaven. This is the beating heart of ancient Indian religious life. Temples weren't just places to pray. They were community centers, schools, treasuries, even hospitals. And the larger ones like this, they pulsed with politics, art, and power. You pass through a series of gateways, each more elaborate than the last. Drums pound in the distance. Bells ring. Flowers are strewn along the path like confetti. You're told not to step on them. You immediately step on one. The merchant glares. You remove your sandals and step into the inner sanctum. It's dim and cool, lit by flickering oil lamps. A statue of Vishnu carved from black stone, draped in silk eyes inlaid with gems, looks down at you with an expression of infinite calm. Or judgment. It's hard to tell. A priest chants in a hypnotic rhythm, sprinkling holy water, smearing sandalwood paste on devotees' foreheads. You move up slowly in the line. A woman in front of you offers a garland. A child drops a coin. You offer silence. It feels appropriate. Suddenly, a commotion. A tax collector enters with 2 guards muttering about a delay in temple dues. The priest doesn't flinch. The merchant frowns. You quietly back up. This is the part of temple life people don't put in travel brochures. You overhear the merchant grumble. We pay in land, in gold, in oxen, and still they come for more. You'd heard whispers before temples as landlords' temples, as banks' temples, as power brokers. In some regions, temples held massive land holdings, employed hundreds, and influenced royal decisions. Historians still debate whether this made them spiritual anchors or political machines. Standing here, you see, maybe both. The tension eases. The priest finishes his rites, and the crowd shifts again. You're ushered to a side chamber, where temple servants prepare offerings, bowls of ghee rice and sweet cakes. One is handed to you. You thank the server, who smiles. Blessed food, he says. Don't drop it. You nearly do. Outside in the temple courtyard, dancers begin a performance. Classical Bharatanatyam part, storytelling part devotion. Anklets jingle, fingers flutter, eyes flash. The story they're telling, though wordless, is clear. A god descends, tests a mortal, then lifts them into grace. You sit on the warm stone floor and watch transfixed. Every movement is charged with meaning. In ancient India, dance was not just art, it was sacred expression. The Natya Shastra, a Sanskrit text on performing arts, describes dance as a path to spiritual truth. You're not sure about truth, but your eyes are definitely watering. After the performance, someone hands you a scroll. It's a land grant, written in delicate script. You look confused. It's a copy, the clerk explains. The temple archives everything: trade, donations, even disputes. You glance around. So many records, so many stories. Then it hits you. This temple is more than a spiritual beacon. It's a living memory vault. You leave the temple in silence, the sweet taste of prasadam on your tongue, and the lingering chant in your ears. Outside, life resumes. Traders hawk goods. Children play with spinning tops. A bull lounges in the shade like it owns the city, which, to be fair, it might. Back at the merchant's home, he thanks you with a copper coin and a cup of buttermilk. You bow awkwardly, and as night falls, you sit outside under the banyan tree, watching the stars blink to life. In your pocket, you still have the coin and the scroll copy, little tokens from a day when the divine felt strangely close, and politics even closer. One more day survived. Though, truth be told, you're starting to wonder if you're surviving or adapting. You're finally starting to feel like you've got the hang of things. You know how to accept buttermilk without insulting someone's ancestors, how to avoid sitting where you shouldn't, and you've only tripped over a ceremonial pot once in the past 2 days. Progress. But just when you think you might be blending in, fate tosses you head first into that most unpredictable of arenas, love. It starts innocently enough. You're invited to a local festival, Holi maybe, or Vasant Panchami, where music and flower petals hang thick in the air, and even the strictest elders allow themselves a bit of joy. Children run wild, dies fly, drums beat like thunder, and somewhere in the middle of it all, you see her, or him, or them. Whoever they are, they're radiant. Eyes like polished obsidian, laughter like temple bells. They smile at you. You smile back. Birds chirp. Time slows. Your stomach does that annoying, fluttery thing. And just like that, you've made a terrible mistake. Because in ancient India, love isn't just glances and giggles. It's serious. Romantic relationships were governed by customs, horoscopes, caste rules, family reputation, dowries, lunar calendars, and, occasionally, snake omens. You try to ask your local friend for advice. He squints at your crush, then at the sky. They're a Rohini Nakshatra, he whispers. You're probably Ashlesha, not ideal. You blink, but he sighs and pulls out a scroll with tiny lunar glyphs. Their moon sign is incompatible. Could lead to poor harvests and unruly children. Excellent. Marriage in ancient India wasn't just about personal happiness, it was a sacred duty, a social contract, and a calculated strategy. Families often arranged matches to preserve caste purity, enhance alliances, or fulfill astrologically auspicious pairings. Historians still argue whether love marriages were rare exceptions or quietly common beneath the surface rituals. But either way, you're now in a dilemma. Later that evening, as the festival calms, you find yourself sitting near a small fire watching your crush from a respectful distance. A wise old woman notices. She cackles softly. You look like a goat watching a mango fall. You mumble something about destiny. She snorts. You want destiny? Try surviving Saptapadi. You soon learn Saptapadi is the 7-step ritual in Hindu weddings. 7 symbolic vows. 7 rounds around the sacred fire. 7 ways to say, "Are you sure about this?" It gets worse. The village priest is now involved. He's heard of your interest and is concerned. "Are you pure in speech?" he asks. "Do you understand your dharma? What lineage are you from?" You reply with a trembling smile and a vague gesture toward the sky. Later, that night, you dream that your would-be lover turns into a cobra and hisses something about karma. Just when you've decided to give up and become a silent monk again, you're pulled aside by a young woman who did manage to marry for love. She tells you her story, secret meetings near the river, late-night exchanges of poetry, the blessing of a sympathetic aunt. "It's possible," she whispers, "but not easy." Then she hands you a folded scrap of palm leaf. On it is a verse from the Gita Govinda, the love poem of Krishna and Radha. "Though the river parts us, my soul is already walking across." You nearly cry. And then, because fate is a prankster, you trip over a ceremonial lamp and set your robe on fire. Just a little, just enough to end the moment. Your crush laughs from across the courtyard. Not unkindly, just enough to tell you this isn't a fairy tale. It's ancient India. If you want love here, you'd better be ready for a family tribunal, a 27-point astrological checklist, and possibly a surprise cobra blessing. Still, something lingers in the air. Maybe it's the sandalwood smoke. Maybe it's the music drifting in from the festival. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the faint heartbeat of something raw. You don't get a wedding. Not today. But you do get a story. And in ancient India, that's almost the same thing. Your romantic misadventure now behind you, along with half your dignity. You decide to try your luck somewhere safer, somewhere logical, somewhere that definitely won't involve cobras, omens, or moon signs. So naturally, you choose international trade. You're in a bustling port city now, possibly Paruk or Tamralipta, depending on the coastline, where boats bob gently in the harbor, and the air smells like salt spices and opportunity. Traders from Arabia, Southeast Asia, and even distant Rome unload goods, ivory silks, gems, sandalwood, pepper, and pottery. You spot jars stamped with unfamiliar scripts, crates wrapped in banana leaves, and a man holding a parrot that definitely just insulted you in Greek. You're introduced to a local shreshthi, a merchant guild leader who mistakes your baffled expression for curiosity. "Come," he says, "let's make you useful." That's how you find yourself on the deck of a palm log ship bound for Lanka, or Sumatra, or maybe just the nearby delta. No one's quite sure because the maps are drawn like abstract art. Maritime trade in ancient India was big business. Ports on both coasts thrived shipping spices and textiles across the Indian Ocean, long before most of Europe figured out what a compass was. Indian traders used the monsoon winds, seasonal ocean breezes that flipped directions reliably every 6 months to cross vast distances. Historians still debate whether these early sailors had formal navigation tools or just terrifyingly good instincts. You just hold on and try not to vomit overboard. The journey is, let's say, interactive. The sea is not kind. The boat rocks like a cradle built by someone who's angry at cradles. The crew chews, battlenut, sings songs you don't understand, and occasionally shouts at you to bail water. You obey, violently. By day 3, you're sunburned, soaked, and convinced the parrot cursed you. But then, as dawn breaks on the 4th morning, you see it a lush coastline rising like a promise from the sea. Palm trees, distant smoke from cooking fires, the sparkle of river estuaries. You've made it. Your cargo is spices, turmeric, cinnamon bark, black pepper-dried ginger. You help unload it with trembling arms, watched by curious locals. Some wear gold earrings the size of coins. One woman offers you a coconut. You try to say thank you, but accidentally say cow intestine. She laughs and hands you another. Trade isn't just about goods, it's about stories. The Shreshti explains as he counts out tiny silver coins. Each item here carries a tale. The silk from China met sandalwood from Malabar passed through the hands of 10 nations. You nod solemnly, then drop a bundle of pepper into the dirt. Classic. You spend the next few days helping with deals. You learn to weigh goods with stones, to taste-test salt, without choking to smile while haggling. It's exhausting. It's exhilarating. It's capitalism with palm leaves. One night, a Tamil sailor tells you a story of how Roman coins were once so common in the South India. Local kids use them as game pieces. The Romans loved our black pepper, he says. Called it black gold. You picture Caesar sneezing and nod appreciatively. You also learn about guilds' early trade associations that regulated markets, protected members, and even managed loans. They had rules codes, and occasionally, if you didn't pay your dues, a very persuasive muscle team. Ancient India's economy, while pre-industrial, was more organized than you'd imagined. Maybe not stock exchanges, but certainly a functioning system of supply-demand and strategic eyebrow raises. But just as you're getting comfortable, maybe even dreaming of launching your own spice brand, Curry Me Home, you catch wind of a new problem. Pirates. Yes, pirates. Local fishermen whisper of raiders with curved swords, painted faces, and boats faster than monsoon winds. Your return voyage now delayed, or potentially canceled. You retreat to a coastal shrine, light an oil lamp, and pray to any deity that accepts foreign applications. Ganesha, Varuna, maybe Poseidon just in case. Eventually, you're granted safe passage home, after paying an informal tribute to a man whose beard has its own area code. The sea is rough again, but you survive. You dock in India, a little older, a little smellier, and with a renewed respect for trade routes and waterproofing. And when the Shreshti hands you a single silver coin, as payment he smiles. First voyage is never for profit. It's for proof. You nod, tuck the coin into your belt, and limped back toward the village where your journey began. You've fought cows, faced fire rituals, wrestled love and leeches, and now conquered the sea. You're starting to think you might actually make it, until someone mentions the word plague. You return from your great maritime adventure just in time for disaster. At first, it's subtle. A few villagers coughing more than usual. A merchant too tired to haggle. A child with a strange rash on her arms. You figure it's just seasonal. Dust, maybe. Fatigue. You've had worse, remember the leech therapy. But then the temple bell rings 3 times in a row. An ancient signal. Something's wrong. You find yourself in the town square, where the Vaidya village healer is speaking with urgency. It's spreading, he says grimly. Too fast. You don't catch every word, but the crowd's expressions tell you everything. Fear, confusion, and that telltale tightening in the air before panic strikes. A sickness has arrived. The symptoms vary: fevers, rashes, weakness, shortness of breath. The elderly and the very young are the first to succumb. Word spreads that it came with the last trade caravan, or maybe the pilgrims from the north, or perhaps whispers say the curse of a broken vow. You're given a task: help carry the sick to a makeshift shelter near the temple. You do it, hour after hour. Your hands begin to smell of sweat smoke and medicinal herbs. Your clothes cling with dust and fear. You overhear prayers to Dhanvantari, the god of medicine, to Shitala Devi, goddess of smallpox. Offerings increase. So does incense. You help burn camphor at the crossroads. Not because it works, but because it feels like doing something. Ancient India didn't have germ theory, but it had patterns. People recognized contagion, even if they explained it through karma or cosmic imbalance. Quarantine-like practices existed, cleansing rituals, purity codes. Historians still debate how widespread these measures were, but you see them in action now. The sick are separated. Water pots are marked. Families begin drawing chalk symbols on doorways for protection. You see turmeric being mixed with cow dung and smeared across thresholds. Still, the illness spreads. At night, the cremation fires burn brighter than ever. You help carry logs. You try not to look too closely, but the smell is unforgettable. The village changes. Laughter disappears. So do crowds. Markets shrink. Some homes are shuttered. People whisper instead of speak. It's like everyone is holding their breath, waiting to see who will be next. You fall sick for one day. Fever chills. You lie under a neem tree, convinced this is it. You think of the forest monks, the chanting under the Bodhi tree, the warmth of your first bowl of sweet kheer. You wonder if those fleeting moments were enough to make your story worth telling. Then, as if by divine humor, you recover. No one's sure why some survive and others don't. Maybe the tea made from tulsi leaves. Maybe your stubborn gut flora. Maybe dumb luck. But you rise shaky and resume helping where you can. You start assisting the Vaidya again, grinding herbs, boiling roots, chanting softly with the others. There's an odd peace in this. Not victory, but presence. Then finally, a shift. The coughs grow quieter. The fevers ease. The death chants stop echoing through the streets. Slowly, life returns, fragile, cautious, grateful. One morning, a child runs past you chasing a goat. You almost cry. There's a purification ceremony. People bathe in the river. Oil lamps are floated downstream, each one a whispered prayer. You light your own and send it out, watching the tiny flame drift into darkness. The village breathes again, and though no one says it aloud, you all know the sickness took something more than just lives. It burned away illusions, exposed the raw truth of impermanence. You feel older, quieter, less eager to prove yourself, more eager to be yourself. You sit by the fire that night, listening to elders speak of past plagues of the time. A whole kingdom fasted together for healing, of how a single child's song was believed to break a fever. You ask one of them if the gods caused this. She shrugs, maybe. Or maybe the gods just remind us how little we control. You nod. You've seen enough now to believe that truth doesn't always wear a crown. And just when you think it's over, someone suggests a pilgrimage to the Ganges. For peace, for cleansing, for memory. You look down at your calloused hands, then up at the river of stars above you. You nod. You'll go. The journey begins before dawn, with your feet in sandals that have given up on being sandals. You're part of a long line of pilgrims headed toward the sacred river, the Ganga. Some chant softly, some carry small idols or copper pots. Some walk barefoot in absolute silence. You join them, dust clinging to your skin lungs, filling with the dry breath of the earth. This isn't just a trip, it's a return. The Ganges, or Ganga Ma, isn't just a river. She's a goddess, a purifier, a cosmic link between heaven and earth. To bathe in her is to cleanse your sins, To die near her banks is to escape the cycle of rebirth. That's the belief anyway. As you walk, you pass shrines, forests, ruined stupas overgrown with vines, and the occasional enthusiastic monkey stealing fruit from unattended bags. Every step carries history. Every mile whispers stories. You reach the river. After 2 days, your legs aching, your throat dry, your mind oddly clear. The banks are bustling. Priests chant, vendors sell marigolds and incense, and pilgrims descend the steps' ghats into the muddy sacred waters. You sit for a moment, watching. Some people weep as they bathe. Others laugh. Children splash. An old man releases his brother's ashes into the current, his hands trembling. You approach the edge and wade in slowly, the water cool against your battered feet. A priest blesses you with a sprinkle from a brass pot. He smiles like he sees right through you. You dive. The moment is surreal. The water smells of silt and smoke. You taste the mineral tang of 10,000 years. When you surface, the sky seems bluer. The noise of the world feels distant. You stand, dripping heart, pounding, unsure if you've been changed or simply reminded of who you always were. Around you, people perform pujas, offer coconuts, tie red threads to riverside trees. One man floats a diya, an oil lamp, downstream watching it, until it vanishes around a bend. You light one, too. Yours wobbles, flares once, then steadies. Nearby, a group is performing Antieshti last rites. A body wrapped in cloth is placed on a pyre. Wood crackles. Smoke rises. The family chants softly, no wailing, just farewell. You sit at a respectful distance and watch the flames. Death in ancient India isn't seen as an end but a threshold. The body returns to earth. The soul, if blessed, moves on. Cremation at the Ganges is the highest honor. You remember the old woman's words. The gods remind us how little we control. You breathe deeply. You don't want to leave, but dusk is coming. The other pilgrims are packing. You gather your things fewer than when you started this journey, and rise. One last time you turn toward the river. You whisper thanks, not just for survival, but for something quieter. Something that grew inside you unnoticed while you were busy just trying to stay alive. On the road back, you're lighter, calmer. You smile more easily. You help a limping traveler. You share your last bit of jaggery with a crying child. No fanfare, just presence. You sleep that night under the open sky, wrapped in a thin cloth, your head resting on your folded arm. And for the first time in this long, strange, beautiful ordeal, you dream not of escape, but of return. Word count 1, Yosh 95. Wind down, final 300 words. The journey quiets now. The fires have dimmed, the markets hushed, the sandals worn thin. The ancient streets you once tiptoed through, filled with priests, poets, kings, and cows, fade into soft echoes. The chants soften, the bells fall still, and the stories you carried begin to settle gently into memory. Breathe in. You've wandered across a civilization that never rushed. A place where time rippled like the Ganges, where people moved in rhythm with monsoons and moonlight, where knowledge lived in songs, in stones, in silence. You've stumbled, yes, but you've listened, knelt, laughed, cried, learned. You've survived what many couldn't. But more than that, you were there. You felt the sting of sandalwood paste in a cut, the weight of a palm leaf scroll, the sacred hush before sunrise. Now, as you lie beneath a sky that looks ancient even in your modern eyes, let your breath slow. Feel the earth beneath you. The story has ended not with a grand battle or triumph, but with stillness. You're safe. The drums have quieted. The gods are sleeping. Even the monkeys for now have lost interest. Let the stars keep watch. Let the air cradle you. Let the echoes fade. Sleep. You've made it.